Hey to everyone watching, and thank you for joining us for our breakdown of UFC 315, Muhammad versus Della Maddalena. We got fights this weekend in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Two title fights. Pretty solid fight card. Here to join me as always, Nick. What are your thoughts on this event coming on Saturday?
Yeah, first of all, shouts out to Dines, who we're doing this content for up in Canada. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a huge country, but it's in someone's backyard, I imagine. But yeah, definitely looking forward to the card. I mean, by pay-per-view standards, maybe not the best card, but certainly better than some of the fight night offerings we've been seeing. Certainly better than a lot of these Apex cards. Some intriguing matchups, some good betting spots. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I look forward to every card though. So yeah, maybe don't take my word for it, but it should be a fun night of fights either way.
Yeah, definitely should. A lot of Canadian athletes in action in this event. We're going to start from the top, look at the closer, welterweight main event and world title fight with Belal Muhammad defending his championship against the oncoming Jack Della Maddalena. Muhammad minus 240, the betting favorite against Della Maddalena, who is plus 190, the underdog. Um, Muhammad is the champion. It's impossible to deny him at this point. Winner of 10 fights in a row. It was a rather close performance, some moments against Leon Edwards, but he definitively won the title last summer. Clearly doing enough to claim the gold at 170 pounds. And for years now, these great athletes, opponents have stood across from Belal Muhammad, and he's finding a way to outwork them. He's finding a way to be tougher. He's finding that no matter what, he can survive what they are throwing at him, and he can put forth enough with his own offensive output, his strategy, control time, accruing moments where he has his opponent moving backwards, putting a lot of pressure in their face. That's what's winning Belal a majority of these fights. His striking has greatly improved. His boxing's at a completely another level than what it has been in years past. But even with that being said, he's fighting an opponent in Jack Della Maddalena that's going to have a decisive advantage in those striking exchanges. A general large part of Bilal's fights are going to take place on the feet. And that would be an area where you'd think Della Maddalena can certainly get off some good shots. He's 8 years younger, great from both stances. Jack Della Maddalena has very tight boxing combinations. I've been on him this whole win streak leading into the title fight as well. Quick hands. He's shown an ability when taken down and controlled by opponents. He's able to survive. He's able to address the position and quickly work back to his feet. We saw that in his recent fight against Gilbert Burns. Burns was able to land submissions 7 total times in that fight, but only accrue 5 minutes of control time against Della Maddalena. He kept getting up. He kept finding a way to get back to his feet. And although he was taken down again, it only took one exchange, one knee landing from Della Maddalena in between those, grappling moments for him to completely change the complexion of that fight that he was losing. Um, Over the course of five rounds with Muhammad and the pace that he sets, and I'm sure he'll take a grappling heavy approach to this matchup. I would think that Della Maddalena is going to tire in the later rounds, and his opportunity to find that knockout shot is going to be slim. So, Muhammad is the rightful betting favorite here. Probably do have to think he's going to get the better of Della Maddalena over the course of a 5 round fight. This guy's boring. He's a decision machine, and this probably will be a fight that he makes boring and takes to the judges' scorecards to retain his belt. I just think this is a lot for Della Maddalena at this stage. And again, we've seen Belal just able to work these guys and overwhelm them over the course of the fight.
Yeah, very binary matchup. I know you hate Bilal, and it definitely pained you to kind of talk him up there, so I'll do it a little bit more for you. I mean, yeah, the Leon fight, he looked great early. That fight was more competitive than I think a lot of people expected if you go and rewatch it, because the expectations for Bilal going in there were so low. When they first matched up, obviously dealt with the eye poke, but was getting picked apart on the feet prior to that. So I think going into that fight where he captured the belt last time out, not a lot of people had high expectations for him. I don't think either of us did really, but he looked excellent there. Showed greatly to have improved his striking, and a big part of that is because he's such a dangerous grappler. We see this time and time again. The example I always use is in that title fight between Masvidal and Mohammed Usman, or not Mohammed, Kamaru Usman. But obviously, Masvidal, one of the better boxers in that division at the time. But we saw Usman able to knock him out on the feet because he was so concerned with the takedown. That is the type of thing that is going to allow Belal to kind of hang in striking exchanges here. Jack Della Maddalena, decent defensive grappler, just a 70% takedown defense. To your point, he did a decent job working his way back to his feet against Burns. He was down in that fight bad, though. Like for 2.5 rounds before he caught Burns late in that third, was going to lose that fight via decision. And while he was able to work back to his feet, I do rate Burns' jujitsu, excuse me, higher than Belal's. But Belal's the better wrestler, also the much bigger fighter. A lot of Burns' career was spent down at 155 pounds. I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for him to work his way back up here. So I do think Belal is the side. I like the price as long as he stays under -200. I think you said 240. But looking across a few books right now, the line does seem to be closing. I think people just don't like Belal. And for that reason, Della Maddalena getting a lot of love here. I think people would love to see him be a champ. Super fun style, great boxer, really does a good job kind of working in those body shots, building up combinations, but he hasn't really taken on the same level of competition that he's going to be facing here. Again, he was losing to Burns for most of that fight, got him late. Burns definitely in the twilight of his career. Prior to that, a very close fight with Kevin Holland. I don't want to put too much into it because he had to cut weight twice in 1 week, but that fight with Hafez certainly more competitive than it should have been. Then we're going back to Brown, Roberts, etc. Good wins, but really nothing on the level that we've been seeing from Belal Muhammad. So I do like Belal here. Also, I mean, Della Maddalena, he deserves a title shot. He's in the top 5, but he's kind of gifted it because of a few I don't know, injuries, namely to Shavkat Rakhmonov. It's not every day you see the 5th ranked fighter getting a shot here without beating anyone below him. So I think Muhammad's the side. Could Della catch him? Sure, it's possible. He has a puncher's chance, but probably don't want to be backing a puncher's chance. I don't know, unless he's plus 250, 300. And I don't think the line's going to inflate to that point because of the public perception of Belal. People want to see him lose. But yeah, he's kind of corny, is what it is, but he is super cerebral, very intelligent fighter. He's going to go out there with a sharp game plan. So yeah, I do think Belal gets it done probably by decision.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a good emotional hedge bet for me. Wouldn't be mad to see him lose the belt either. Another very tough spot here in the co-main event, this women's title fight in the flyweight division. Manon Fiorot, -150, the betting favorite. Closing a bit here, facing the defending champion, Valentina Shevchenko. I've been high on Fiorot for a long time. I've been saying she'd be a champion upon her entry into the UFC. She's now won 7 straight. She cashed her last time out against Erin Blanchfield, a fight she won by unanimous decision, landing 172 significant strikes over the course of that bout. Really showcasing the best skill set of Fiorot, which is her very technical striking, super high level boxer, lifelong martial artist, very similar to Shevchenko in that respect. But yeah, she's big. She's big for this weight class. She seems to hit hard. When you're throwing 6.2 significant strikes per minute, not all of them are going to land with such devastating pop. But Fiorot really does mix in hard shots there. She's able to hurt her opponents, and yeah, she's shown capable of fighting well in a 5-round striking match. I'm just a bit, concerned in regards to seeing Valentina as betting underdog. Yes, she's 37 years old. Yes, it was a tough fight in her last, timeout. Really needing to execute to get the belt away from Alexa Grasso. However, Shevchenko did that. She scored the takedown she needed to. She had 16 minutes of control time in her last in her fight against Grasso. And again, if she's going to take a grappling heavy approach here against Fiorot, well, Fiorot is proven, very capable of holding her own on the mat. 91% takedown defense over the course of 7 fights in the UFC. The French just typically can't wrestle him at the championship level. If Valentina is going to implement that sort of approach, mix in her takedowns well, something she's done her whole career, score them when they matter. I think she should be able to win more rounds convincingly. than Fiorot is going to be able to take on the feet. You know, for Fiorot to win 3 or 4 rounds decisively just with her striking against Shevchenko, who's going to do well too, kickboxing. You know, hopefully getting into tighter exchanges with Fiorot, where she can implement better Muay Thai and like clinch work. But again, over the course of 5 rounds, I think it's going to be very hard for Fiorot to score consistently, fighting on the outside and trying to keep that distance against a opponent with super high IQ in Shevchenko. I think Shevchenko is going to be able to get the job done. She's 37 years old, yes, but she's fighting a 35-year-old opponent. Again, I really view Fiorot as championship level material, and this is as tight a fight as you could get here. You know, in the women's divisions. So for that reason, the betting underdog is what draws me. And again, when that's the defending champion, when that's the one with the belt on her shoulder, I don't think it's as hard as for me to fade Fiorot. You know, she's quicker, she's the better striker, but I think it's a very tough path for her to win the title here against Shevchenko on the night.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised you're not taking Fiorot. Credit to you. You have been super high on her since you broke into the promotion. I am on the Valentina side. I am a little bit surprised by the line. But I can see arguments for both fighters here. I mean, Fiorot, the biggest argument is definitely her size. I mean, she's super physical, thick body, full of muscle, just really one of the bigger girls in this entire division. She's going to have some length here. I mean, the reach is in Valentina's favor slightly, but usually we don't see fighters with a reach advantage over Valentina Shevchenko or even close to it. I mean, Fiorot has excellent footwork. The biggest thing that concerns me in backing Valentina, which I'm going to be doing here, is just the volume that Fiorot puts out. Stat I heard today, Valentina has never landed 100 significant strikes in a fight. A lot of her fights going 5 rounds, which is somewhat concerning here against Fiorot, who lands more than 6 strikes per minute. So if it's just a volume kickboxing match, Fiorot could definitely get it done just on volume. I do think Valentina does a good job kind of mixing in some bigger shots, though, some of those big, heavy spinning kicks. And I think she's going to have a cardio advantage here. Fiorot did go 5 rounds with Blanchfield. I think Blanchfield actually may have won that 5th round, though. She does tend to fade a little bit in her fights, and I think a big reason for that is she does cut so much weight to make 125 pounds. But the big X factor here certainly is going to be the grappling advantage for Valentina Shevchenko. Blanchfield certainly known as a grappler, great jiu-jitsu, kind of similar to what we just described with Gilbert Burns, but not quite the wrestling on the level of Shevchenko, in my opinion. I do think Valentina should be able to get takedowns here. Just going to be a matter of how long can she keep her down. More than anything, though, I just hope she's like very aggressive in her pursuit, just keeps going after them, because I think that's going to eventually wear on the gas tank of Fiorot. I actually think the best way to kind of play this, and we're already getting Valentina as an underdog, is maybe to wait a round or two. I think Fiorot could definitely win the 1st and even 2nd round. But from there, Valentina, I think that championship experience is going to shine through. If she is getting takedowns easily, you're going to miss the boat on that line. So I get totally betting it pre-fight. Again, I just think there's value on her here more than anything. I'm a little bit shocked. Fiorot's been super impressive. She is French speaking, despite being in Montreal. She is going to have the crowd behind her to an extent here as well. But yeah, I just think Valentina, the southpaw look too, going to be a little bit tricky for Fiorot, dealing with a lot of more traditional standard orthodox strikers recently. And again, just another level of striker than what she's been seeing at the UFC level. Rose even had moments against Fiorot, much smaller fighter, not nearly as physically imposing as Valentina, and she broke her hand in that 1st round, stayed competitive. I just think Valentina, if she shows up in her peak form, is going to be the fighter to get the job done here, mostly leaning on her grappling, getting the takedown she needs at opportune times. She does a good job just staying competitive on the feet and then securing rounds late with takedowns. Like we've seen it against Grasso. I mean, Fiorot could be slightly ahead with a minute left in a round, and then Valentina takes her down, takes the round from her. I think we're going to see that probably 3+ rounds here, and I think that's going to be enough for her to get it done. So yeah, man, I think I'm on the Valentina side. A little bit surprised that you're going to be here with me, but the price is surprising. I definitely think there's value. Fiorot is big, but I think Valentina does kind of measure up to her pretty well compared to a lot of her recent opponents. Blanchfield, excuse me, as good as she is as of a grappler, when you see them in the cage together, she just doesn't really look like the same weight class. I think here that discrepancy is not going to quite be the same. So I'm on the Valentina side. I think there's a lot of value on her as an underdog. Should be competitive though, And I do think the takedowns are going to be key here. If she's not taking her down, the volume does concern me a little bit, just knowing Valentina has never landed 100 significant strikes in a fight before. So I'm on Valentina here. Love the price. I think she retains the title, but Fiorot, certainly no pushover. This should be a fun one.
Yeah, definitely a really good one. I mean, again, I don't know if 125 is still out there for Valentina, but that's what's drawing me. And if it was flipped, I would be on the Fiorot side. So, we'll take a look now at the featured bout here at bantamweight. Jose Aldo, minus 200, the betting favorite against Aiemann Zahabi, who could be had at plus 160 odds. Aldo coming into this fight, winner of a few. 6 straight decisions for Jose Aldo, in the cage. Not the most, convincing fights that he's necessarily been seeing here. Zahabi, very similar style, oftentimes fighting to decision in 3 of his last 4, as well. As somebody who, like Jose Aldo, will look to strike, counter strike, do what he can, but not necessarily a decisive power threat. Zahabi is longer, more athletic at this, junction of their careers. I think these odds are a bit too high, honestly, and what will likely devolve into a close decision fight. If these two are just going to stand there and kickbox, Zahabi has continued to improve. He's always been very defensively sound in regards to his striking. And again, when you're facing a guy like Aldo, who's an excellent counter striker, who is sometimes a step slower than opponents this stage of his career. I think Zahabi at home in Canada is going to be appealing as the betting underdog, but Aldo is still ultimately going to be the pick for me. I think he has shown when it is just going to be a striking match, he is the Aldo of old. This particular matchup, he's only fighting an opponent 1 year younger than him, which is kind of crazy. But again, Aldo has the physical, advantage against a lot of these guys in the cage with his long reach, with his ability to step in, land decisively with his strike, something he's been doing his entire career. Boxing, that's off the charts. Zahabi may look to, again, kick and, find his distance against Aldo early, kind of establish himself and land powerful strikes from there, where Aldo isn't afraid to get in the pocket, land bigger shots against Zahabi and, perhaps have the bigger moments in this fight. Not a fight where either man should really be worrying about the grappling. I think these two are going to stand and exchange for the most part. I'll take Aldo if that's going to be the case. Again, don't love the price tag, but I think he is going to end up winning this fight.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the Aldo side here. I thought he got robbed his last time out against Mario Batista, honestly. Batista mostly just cage pushing for the extent of that fight. The fight before, he looked great in these striking exchanges against Jonathan Martinez. Before that, Merab wasn't able to take him down. Another fight where he was just pushed against the cage. I don't really see Zahabi as the type of fighter who's going to be able to execute that type of game plan here. That's really the only thing that has been slowing Aldo down, even at this point in his career. Obviously, a former champion at 145 pounds. I mean, still just one of the best in the world, in my opinion, especially on the feet. He's not throwing the leg kicks like he used to. I'm kind of hoping he gets them going here against an opponent in Zahabi who can be somewhat heavy on his front foot when he is planting to throw. But yeah, Zahabi, not really a major power threat. He's going to stand in the pocket with him. And I just think the better technical striker is Jose Aldo still. I like that he's kind of pissed off coming into this one too. He said he was disgusted with himself after the Batista fight, not only by the decision, but just his own performance. I mean, prior to that, looked excellent against Martinez, who I rate much higher than Zahabi, at least as a striker. And the other thing here, too, I mean, Aldo is a very intelligent fighter. If he needs to, kind of similarly to what I was describing with Valentina, he could shoot for takedowns late in rounds just to kind of secure the rounds here. Again, Zahabi's been great. He's on a nice little run. He's got some solid wins over Basharat, Munoz, etc. But I still rate Aldo much higher than him. I mean, his losses are coming against really tough opponents. Batista, I think, broke into the top 10 or near it. Merab, obviously the champ, wins over other top 10 fighters and guys like Rob Font, etc. So, although even at this point in his career, taking on the better competition and different than the Batista fight, to your point, this isn't like some young up-and-coming prospect in Zahabi. He's been around a really long time. This guy who doesn't fight all that often. Crowd definitely going to be behind Zahabi here, I will say. But it's not like they're going to be hating on Aldo. I mean, Zahabi's brother famously coached Georges St. Pierre, who's going to be in attendance. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of tribute going on to him. Yeah, I mean, the intangibles are in Zahabi's favor. I just think the level but between these two guys is still quite wide. I actually think there's value on Aldo around -200 if this price isn't going to move. I like him a lot here. I don't think he finds a finish. Zahabi pretty durable, although not really chasing finishes, but I love the interviews this week. He seems pissed off. We haven't heard this type of Jose Aldo in a really long time. Really looking forward to it. Still one of my favorite fighters in the world. I think he gets it done here, even in Zahabi's backyard.
All right. Next up, we will look at this women's flyweight matchup between Natália Silva and Alexa Grasso. Natália Silva -240, the betting favorite here against Grasso, who could be had at 2-1. Silva is on a 6-fight win streak since joining the UFC. This is going to be a significant step up in competition, at least in my eyes, facing Alexa Grasso in this spot. Despite Silva being favored in all of her matchups to this point, this really seems like one where I'm scratching my head looking at the price tag. Grasso coming off a title fight against Valentina Shevchenko. Again, taken down to a good extent in that matchup, but she is still a very high volume striker who should be able to hold her own in a fight that's going to take place on the feet. Silva has not been shooting for takedowns to a great extent. Her only takedown since joining the UFC came in her first and debut fight. Valentina was a tough southpaw opponent that Grasso was able to stand and really win a lot of minutes against when standing and strictly boxing, and I think that could be the case here against Silva as well. Silva, who's quick, very effective out of the southpaw stance, good at landing strikes in combination. 5.19 her average significant strikes landed per minute. She's definitely going to go out there and look to engage Grasso on the feet. I think she should have some confidence, a bit of size over Grasso, a bit more physically strong, and perhaps taking that confidence, a bit too far in the pocket against the tough Mexican fighter, who again is a very skilled boxer, has shown it throughout the course of her career, and very similar to the case Shevchenko's in. If it is just going to strictly be a match where these two are striking, Grasso should be able to hold her own and again win a good chunk of those moments on the feet. She's a tempting underdog for me. I really, am still undecided on this fight. Great opportunity to plug our full write-up of these fights and predictions on Dine Sports every Saturday morning. So you can check out the article for my official pick here, but I'm leaning Grasso at the current price tag, getting 2-1 here. I don't think it's really warranted. And again, it's likely another fight on this main card that I think is going to go the full distance. And I'd rather be holding the ticket with the betting underdog. So probably going to be Grasso for me. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo a lot of the same thoughts. I'll kind of add a little bit in terms of like the stylistic matchup. I mean, Grasso, definitely a boxer first and foremost. And she likes to counter. Silva, though, not really a standard striker in that she tends to kick more than she punches. So this is a really interesting matchup. I will say, I mean, I'm with you. I think the price is kind of ridiculous. I'm a little bit shocked by the line. At the same time, Silva's been so impressive. I understand it to an extent. Historically, fighters coming off of championship losses have not done well. So I do think there's a few reasons to maybe knock Grasso here. Also, I just picked up this little tidbit. Her and Lupi Godinez have been training together. They unfollowed each other for some reason. Diego Lopez, obviously coming off a title fight, I don't think has been super involved in this fight camp. So maybe Grasso doesn't have the same team behind her that she had for those championship fights. But I will say, I mean, she's prepared for a southpaw in each of her last three, all being against Valentina. This is a kind of similar opponent as Valentina in that she's going to have to be dealing with a lot of kicking, doing a lot of countering. It's just, I don't know that she's going to want to take this fight to the mat. I think Silva has underrated jiu-jitsu. And if this plays out at striking range, I think Silva could land the bigger shots. At the same time, the price, and I'm with you, man, it just seems wrong. Like, if this was a coin flip, I'd be on Silva. And when I say coin flip, I'm talking about the lines. And that's kind of how I see this playing out. So, yeah, I'll plug the article once again. I'm undecided here. I want to see how they look at weigh-in. I mean, Grasso has kind of, I don't know, fluctuated on weigh-in day in terms of how well she looks. Maybe we could get a read in that way. I mean, Silva definitely bigger for the division than I thought she would be coming in. I mean, she's really put on a lot of muscle over the past few fights. Curious to see how she looks. These two did face off after the press conference earlier today. They sized up pretty well. But again, it's a kicker versus a puncher, which makes it kind of a difficult fight to predict. I do think I prefer the Silva side slightly if I'm just making a pick, but at the price, man, all the value is on Grasso. I won't deny mind that at all. So I'm with you. I think it's one of the tougher fights on the card to call. I can certainly see it going either way. But yeah, is Grasso going to be in peak form here? If she is, I think she's the side. At the same time, there's a few things telling us she might not be. So definitely something worth digging into a little bit more.
Alrighty, and now we will break down the main card opener. This is a fight at lightweight. Benoît Saint Denis, the minus 1100 betting favorite against short notice fighter Kyle Prepolec, who can be had at 7-1. Saint Denis originally scheduled to fight Joel Alvarez here on the night earlier this week. That fight falling apart, and now Prepolec stepping in on short notice, the Canadian. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, so obviously the line's very, very wide here. I mean, Saint Denis was preparing for Joel Alvarez, super difficult opponent. There's rumors he could see Mateusz Rebecki, would have been a very difficult opponent. He apparently accepted the fight against Gamrot, and his coach said no. So again, all of these guys would have been much a tougher test than Kyle Prepolec, who had formerly fought in the UFC. And it is notable, everyone's talking about the short notice nature of this fight for him. He was scheduled to fight the night before for a regional promotion in Canada. So, I mean, he's peaking at the right time. He's had a full camp. I just don't like the matchup for him. This just feels like two completely different levels. Prepolec, kind of a journeyman. When he was in the UFC, struggled against grapplers. I mean, Austin Hubbard in that loss took him down a bunch of times. I do think Saint Denis has a very clear path here if he chooses to take him to the mat. The one thing I will say, and I'm really digging. Like, I think Saint Denis aside, I think he gets it done probably in the first round or two. Prepolec, not an easy guy to finish. I don't think he's ever been KO'd professionally. And we have seen Saint Denis' cardio kind of fail him at times. So if there is a path for Kyle here, it's probably to extend this fight, get beat up and Homer Simpson it, maybe take over late. But it seems more likely than not, Saint Denis just the better, more physical, more violent fighter, going to have a reach advantage, going to be throwing those huge body kicks, much better grappler, super dangerous on the mat against a guy who does kind of struggle to stay standing in Kyle Prepolec. I think Saint Denis the side. I do think the money line's a little bit inflated, honestly. When it was first announced, I thought it made sense. I do think Saint Denis probably covers the price, but if this gets into the second and late into the third round, I mean, I don't know. You're not going to feel great if you have him as a massive, massive favorite. So I'd rather just take a stab at Saint Denis, maybe the under 1.5, just try to get some value out of this fight. It's not easy to do. But yeah, he was preparing for much more difficult opponents than what he's going to be seeing here. Prepolec, kind of like what we saw from Jeremy Stephens last week, getting the opportunity here because he will be fighting in front of his home crowd. Very easy to just put him on the card because he was preparing for a fight regionally the night prior. But yeah, I expect he's outmatched here by a wide margin, especially on the mat, but also on the feet. I just think the clearest path might be for Saint Denis to take him down. But I think either way, he gets it done probably inside the distance.
Yeah, I echo a lot of the same sentiments regarding this fight. Although I'm not sure Prepolec's best chance will be late. I mean, Saint Denis faded against Poirier, but I mean, he additionally, I think, was dealing with staff and the antibiotics and all of that heading into that particular matchup. I don't
He
know if
faded in the second
cardio.
round. It wasn't late.
Yeah, I don't know if cardio is necessarily the issue with the Saint Denis. I mean, he got his ass beat in that fight, and his most recent against Moicano there in round one. I think that was the reason for him deteriorating and fading there too. I think it's catch him early. I think he does have a susceptible chin. If Prepolec is going to pull it off as the underdog, I think it's going to be a knockout very early on. But yeah, one would think conventional wisdom, Saint Denis is going to be able to completely outwork this guy coming in on short notice, take him down to the mat where Saint Denis is best. Again, we've seen Saint Denis on the losing end of his previous two matchups due to the fact that he was the nail and not the hammer. I think in this particular fight, he should be able to secure the takedowns and get position on Prepolec where he should be able to, dominate, execute his grappling to the extent that we had seen on his, few fights prior and, get back on a winning track here. Yeah, against an opponent that he really should outmatch. Saint Denis fighting these guys in the lightweight top 15. Prepolec not even in the UFC, rankings competing at this level. And his two losses were to Austin Hubbard and Nordine Taleb in his previous UFC stint. So it's not like he really, has showcased the ability to compete at this level. And again, facing a guy, Saint Denis, really needing a win. I think he should be able to get it done here in the main card opener. All right, we'll look now to the prelims for this fight card. Mike Malott closing him out, hometown guy here against Charles Radtke, the betting underdog. Mike Malott minus 170, the favorite, and Radtke, who we had at plus 140. This is an interesting matchup. Malott fighting at home here in Canada, not looking to make the same mistakes as old. Certainly not overexerting himself or looking to initiate grappling to the same extent here against an opponent in Radtke, who probably can hold his own wrestling with Malott and keeping himself safe for the early majority of this fight. Malott should be the better technical striker when these two are exchanging on the feet. He has good kicks. He has good weapons from range. Whereas Radtke is a bit more of a brawler, relying on his power and relying on closing the distance by throwing strikes while moving forward. Malott better on his feet, more elusive, and better while moving backwards. He's looked solid. I think in terms of his durability and cardio, there were some questions, but Malott coming out, winning in his last appearance and not having to initiate, with his own offensive grappling in that fight. Again, that's like his X factor. If he is going to get you down or get you in an exchange where he could wrap your neck, he should be able to do so and quickly end the fight. But otherwise, Malott confident on his feet, and I think with his, with the advantage of reach over Radtke, with the advantage of height, he should be able to pop out a good amount of his own offensive strikes here, keeping Radtke on the outside and having the better, cleaner technical fight overall. So I'm picking Malott here. Wouldn't surprise me to see Radtke pull off the upset, just able to outgrid him and get a win late. But I think Malott more often than not is landing the better strikes and more potent, capable finishing threat than Charles Radtke.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think Malott's the better kind of technical fighter in this matchup, no matter where it goes. The one fear is that he does get knocked out by Radtke, who has an extremely powerful left hand. And both of Malott's losses, albeit one due to cardio, he was finished via KO. So there's some concern there. But yeah, I think if he just kind of minds his P's and Q's, stays on the outside, he could probably pick Radtke apart at range for the most part. I do think he could maybe mix in takedowns if he chooses to. Radtke does have 100% takedown defense in the UFC, but he's been taking on a really low level of opponent. 3-1 his last 4, but all 3 of those wins are against guys who are no longer in the UFC. Summelsberger, Urbina, and one of your favorites, Blood Diamond, only losing to Carlos Prates. But yeah, man, I think Malott's the side here. I'm just not super excited in him as a prospect anymore. But at the same time, I mean, price isn't bad. I mean, we're looking at minus 160, minus 170 most books. I'm seeing one minus 180. I think that's fair. He is the side. I do think on the money line, he's definitely going to be the pick for me. The one fear, though, is that Radtke does catch him. And I think if Radtke kind of chooses to try to make this dirty, he's going to be live for the upset. But just assuming it goes the distance, I do think Malott's the side. Just a better technical fighter everywhere. Crowd's going to be behind him in a big way as well. All of these Canadian cards have had Mike Malott on them recently. Crowd gets behind him as much as any fighter there is fighting out of that nation. So I do like Malott here to get it done. Radtke live for the KO. If you're taking Radtke, maybe just take him by KO. I don't really see him winning any other way. But at the same time, I just think Malott's the side, just a better fighter overall. I think they want to get him a win here in front of his home crowd.
All right, we'll move on now to this matchup at women's flyweight between Jasmine Jasudavicius and Jessica Andrade. Jasudavicius, another crowd favorite here in Canada. Big betting favorite too, minus 340 against Jessica Andrade, who could be had at plus 250 in the spot. Jasudavicius, someone who, generally utilizing her grappling, taking opponents down, able to easily out-grapple a lot of these girls that she has been facing. I don't think she's going to see much adversity if she tries that same game plan here, facing Jessica Andrade. Jasudavicius has won 4 in a row, scoring multiple takedowns in each of those bouts. Most recently against Bueno Silva, against Ariane Lipski, making me confident that she can handle anything Andrade wants to throw up on the mat. Andrade is somebody who we have seen put on her back on multiple occasions before. Not really a decisive grappling threat. Obviously, she has some submission wins, but not really going to be able to put much out from bottom position if Jasudavicius is successful in scoring the takedowns, getting this fight to the mat at the rate that you would like to. You know, her last time out, Andrade, not a very inspiring performance. Work by Natália Silva in her last fight, kind of showed her age, a bit of low volume in that matchup. Not really much of a threat at any point of finishing that fight, and that was always the case with Andrade. She was such a reckless fighter early on. Throwing her hands, going for those Hail Mary submissions. If Jasudavicius is just going to pressure forward and take her down in this fight, she should be able to get a win rather easily. I think it should be a decision win for Jasudavicius here. And, odds may close significantly. Not sure if you're really going to be getting much better price than 300, but if so, I'd probably lay it with Jasudavicius. She should be able to get the win here against Andrade. Just one last thing of note, 6-inch height advantage, way bigger. And I think that's going to show on the mat for sure. So give me Jasudavicius in this one.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the Jasmine side here. When we talk about Andrade, she's really a different fighter at this weight class than she is at 115 pounds. I mean, most of her success in the UFC has come down 115 pounds, up at 125 here. Just really isn't the same fighter. I mean, she's never even physically imposing at straw weight, able to kind of land knockouts and, like you said, maybe find opportunistic submissions there. But she's just going to be outsized and outstrength here by Jasmine, who's actually one of the bigger fighters in the division. Just a terrible matchup for Jasmine, averaging 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. I would love to see the stat overall. Jessica has a 72% takedown defense, but I imagine if we looked at that number at 125 pounds, it would plummet. I think Jasmine's aside here. I don't mind her on the money line. I actually think inside the distance is an interesting look. We're looking at about a plus 170, plus 180 right now. I mean, we've just seen it. Andrade is not the same fighter at 125 pounds. It's as simple as that. If she's on her back, she's frustrated. We've seen her turtle up. I mean, she's late in her career. This is a woman who deserves her credit. I mean, she's a legend. She's been a champ, but she's taken so much damage over the years. And yeah, it's like she's not as locked in up at this weight class. I mean, we see with fighters like Evan Holland. There's a few others, like when they're moving between the weight classes, they're much better when they're cutting the weight. That's almost always the case because of the size discrepancy. And yeah, I think Jasmine finds the takedown she needs here. I just hope she doesn't play too much on the feet. I could see her maybe doing that a little bit in front of the home crowd, but the path is there. It's very clear. Take her down, probably find the finish, whether it's ground and pound or submission, I'm not sure, but you're getting pretty good plus money inside the distance on a considerable favorite who's a pretty wide money line favorite. So yeah, I like the Jasudavicius side. She's looked great again in front of her home crowd here. Definitely going to be fired up and chasing that finish. Yeah, I think she's a side. I like her inside the distance.
All right, with you on that one. We will now look at light heavyweight, a pick-em matchup between Modestas Bukauskas and Ion Cutelaba. Even money pick-em here. Which way are you going?
Yeah, I mean, these are two extremely volatile fighters, especially Ion Cutelaba. I mean, this guy can look amazing. He can look terrible. He has kind of reeled it in a little bit, definitely a bit more cerebral in his approach over his past few fights, definitely trying to manage that gas tank. Seeing him go to decision in a lot of his recent bouts, which is something we'd never expect from him earlier in his career, is definitely a good development for him. But I do think in terms of like overall technical ability, Modestas is the better fighter here. At the same time, Modestas' chin is a little bit of a question mark. So kind of similarly to the Grasso and Silva fight, I do want to spend a little bit more time on this one. I think no matter how much time you spend on it, though, you could essentially flip a coin and see it going either way. So right now, the value is on Modestas. I think he might actually be the better submission grappler if he can find himself on top. At the same time, Ion very dangerous if he can find himself on top. So it's like, are either of these guys even going to pursue the takedowns? I think if one of them does, it's probably more likely to be Ion. So I don't know. I understand why he's the favorite, probably the more durable of the two as well. But Modestas is making big improvements fight to fight. You kind of say that about both these guys, but in the same breath, I have to say they're both extremely inconsistent. I don't know which version of either fighter is going to show up here. So right now, I'm slightly leaning Modestas just for the value. Zero confidence, though. I can certainly see myself flipping this pick. One of the more volatile fights on the card. And as much as I'd like to say maybe just bet it inside the distance, I mean, Aieman's kind of extending his fights lately, so there's probably not much value there. Really tough fight to call for me. Should be violent for however long it lasts. A fun one for sure, but not because these are like elite fighters by any stretch. I don't know. I've gone back and forth. I really can't make a choice, but I don't think you should be too invested on either side here, regardless.
Yeah, it's impossible to have much confidence picking this matchup with the history of both guys. I am going to go with Bukauskas. I think, as you said, he is the more technical fighter in terms of his striking, in terms of his ability to, fight from range and land shots effectively and consistently over the course of 15 minutes. I think Bukauskas is definitely the side in that regard. And yeah, if the early storm for Kudalava does involve reckless takedown attempts, I think Bukauskas is a guy that I can trust to keep composed and take over those positions if, the pursuit continues into rounds 2 and 3. He has 71% takedown defense. A lot of the times it is, kind of a reckless explosion from Kudalava that's getting him his takedowns and, securing fights on the mat. I think that is where he prefers to compete with his opponents because on the feet, he's always just, tensed up, looking to throw huge overhands and, wail on guys. I think he will feel it as Bukauskas lands crisp and, consistent offense against him. Kudalaba will sort of press the issue and probably, move forward more than we have been seeing. But yeah, I again think if this is going to be a 15-minute matchup, Bukauskas should be landing the crisper and more decisive shots. And again, he has the ability to finish just as well as Kudalaba. He looked great in his previous 2 UFC wins. Beat Rafael Sectaria easily in his last fight. Nice combination in that one. Really putting his hands together, really evolved in his stint with Cage Warriors after his initial cut from the promotion. And yeah, I like what I've been seeing. I think in a pick'em fight, I'm happy to side with, even though clearly this one could go either way. As is the case with light heavyweights, and we got another light heavyweight fight to break down. This one opening the prelims, Navajo Sterling, the betting favorite here facing Ivan Urslan. Sterling minus 340 on the current line here against Urslan, who could be had at plus 260. I'm very high on Sterling, undefeated. He showed a lot of good in his last performance against Tuco Tucos. He wasn't able to get the finish in that matchup, but he was facing a tough opponent. He still landed very accurately, and he was also able to keep the feet. He defended 6 of 9 attempted takedowns and only ceded 3 minutes of control time after being chased and seeing the takedown pursued for the entire fight. Urslan's a fighter who's not necessarily going to give the same look to Sterling. Perhaps a bit more likely to engage Sterling on the feet. Sterling comes from the city kickboxing camp, an elite kickboxer. Plenty of experience in regards to his kickboxing and Muay Thai. Oftentimes, opponents will look to, even if they are comfortable in their own offensive striking, look to engage with these elite strikers on the mat instead. But yeah, if Urslan isn't going to just pursue takedowns and hold on Sterling, he's got some good power. He could end up catching Sterling with a wayward shot. But I think if he is going to be content to strike for the full 3 rounds here, Sterling's going to pick his shots, fight his fight, chop away at Urslan, chop away the legs first, dig to the body, and then start to work toward a finish as this fight progresses later. Sterling should be able to do what he needs to do, control this fight. Has the size on Urslan, the younger fighter. I really think coming into his prime at this stage of his career, going to start seeing some tougher matchups ahead of him. But yeah, Urslan's a guy that he should be able to clear. And again, doesn't provide much of a threat to Sterling on the ground. So I think a finish could certainly materialize for him. I'm probably going to be betting Sterling by knockout here. And I think he gets the job done against Urslan.
Yeah, I am going to be on the Sterling side. I don't know that I'm as high on him as a prospect as you are, though. Obviously, fighting out of city kickboxing. I mean, Bearman's done a good job with these guys with this frame. I mean, we look at Izzy, we look at Alberg, who's been climbing the rankings, but kind of the same knocks on him that we have on Alberg, maybe even more so. Kind of waits for the fights to come to him at times. We did see that against Tukos a little bit, a fight that many people thought he should be able to find the finish. The gap is in the defensive grappling for sure. But I don't really think that Urslan's the type of guy who's going to be able to execute that type of game plan for 15 minutes. Urslan willing to get in a firefight, as we saw his last time out against Kudalaba. Just not really the type of matchup I think Sterling should struggle in a huge way. I will say Sterling, if we're comparing him to Izzy, if we're comparing him to Alberg, I don't think he's as quick, especially when he's throwing some of his big kicks, his big attacks. I just don't know that Urslan is the type of opponent who's going to be able to take advantage of that. I will say the line feels wide here, like paying over minus 300 for a guy who's still relatively unproven in MMA. Obviously, a talented kickboxer, but Urslan did actually secure a takedown his last time out against Kudalaba, who is a decent grappler. So he's going to try for them here. But like I said, I just think he's not going to be able to do it consistently for 3 rounds. I think Sterling should be able to find his way into the win column here, whether by finish or via decision. Someone I'm going to probably look to fade as soon as he faces a good grappler. I just don't know that Urslan necessarily has the skills to keep the fight there. So I'm on Sterling here, somewhat reluctantly. Really don't like the price, if I'm being completely honest. But I do think he's a side. I just don't really think the UFC is super interested in developing Ivan Urslan at this point in his career. So yeah, Sterling's aside, probably stays undefeated. Just really don't love the price. Probably not a fight I get involved with.
All right, we'll now take a look at the early prelims. This a fight at middleweight. Marc-Andre Barriault, the minus 150 betting favorite, here against Bruno Silva, who could be had at plus 125. I am skeptical backing Barriault as the betting favorite, but I figure he should get the job done here fighting north of the border. The reason for my skepticism, obviously, Barriault loser in back-to-back fights by round one knockout. Against Joe Pyfer, no shame in that, but against Dustin Stoltz for this in his last fight, that was bad. I worry about Barriault's chin consistently moving forward in his fights, oftentimes pressuring his opponents to the point of draining their cardio, moving forward constantly, looking to close the distance, throwing shots as he's moving forward. And landing at a high volume throughout his career, just shy of 6 significant strikes landed per minute. That's why they call Barriault the power bar. He's able to continually move forward and hurt his opponents as long as his chin isn't getting checked. So obviously Silva could land a big shot, put out Barriault early in this one. Would it surprise me? No. But Silva isn't somebody who I really rate as a super big power threat here at middleweight either. Not many finishes to his credit. And he's been somebody I've been very happy to bet against. I mean, he sucks. He's slow. He's durable, but it's not going to be difficult for him to compete with Barriault in the department of durability and like cardio, grit in a tough, close fight. Being there at the end and edging it out, I think would be Barriault in my eyes. Silva lost 4 fights in a row. Bad L's to Ismail Nardiev, Chris Weidman at this stage of his career. Although again, not necessarily a fight Silva should have lost, but he's finding a way to lose all of these matchups. So I'm fine going against him here. Obviously, again, Barriault, just the chin that worries me. Otherwise, I'd be putting more on him this weekend. I think he definitely should win this matchup, outwork Bruno Silva.
Yeah, the chin is definitely a concern to an extent. Obviously, the knockout Pyfer is what it is. Stoltzfus not the best look. I mean, he did come back within 5 months between those fights. Maybe that's a reason he didn't look so great against Stoltzfus. At the same time, I mean, I think this is 5 or 6 months since that fight, so maybe he's back a little bit soon here as well. But again, in front of his home crowd, definitely the better fighter overall in terms of his overall abilities, technically, especially standing. I don't expect either fighter to really try to grapple here. And Silva, interviews this week talking about how he's been dealing with anxiety, how he doesn't feel like himself anymore, especially after the first round of fights. So as long as Barrios doesn't get caught in the first round, I do expect him to kind of take over, dominate the second and third, maybe even find a late finish. But to your point, the chin is a concern. So I didn't want to get too involved here. I do think Barrios decide in front of his hometown crowd. Both these guys on long losing streaks, not win streaks. Loser definitely probably ends up cut from the promotion. I'm on the Barrios side, just hoping the chin holds up. Silva's probably going to be dangerous, at least for the first half of the first round, but from there on, it should be smooth sailing. It's just survive and advance for Marc-Andre Barrios here in front of his home crowd. Hopefully that gives him the motivation he needs to stay standing if maybe he is caught early or something like that. But yeah, a much better volume striker, much better cardio, durability, on the Silva side, so there is some concern, but every other box is checked for Marc-Andre Barrios. I don't mind him at all on the money line. Pretty reasonable price. I like that he recently switched camps as well to Killcliff, where there's a lot of good guys at 185 pounds. Should help him to continue to improve his game. Silva seems like he has one foot out the door. So, yeah, volatile fight because of Barrios' chin, but he does check more boxes for me. I do think he's the rightful favorite.
All right. Next up, we'll look at this featherweight matchup. Daniel Santos against Jiang Yang Li. Santos initially minus 145 betting favorite in this fight, but the odds have closed. I see him near even most places. Li is slightly favored, minus 120. One place I'm looking now. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
My first thought is Santos going to pull out? Because he's pulled out of each of his last three fights, some as close as the night before, day before weighing in. So if he makes it to the cage, I do think he's the more dangerous fighter here. But yeah, I mean, this guy, I don't know if it's a mental issue, if it's a physical issue, or what is it? I don't know. Because he's looked good when he finally gets in there, but he's just been unable to get to the octagon on fight day. So I don't know, man. It's a few red flags for me on the Santos side. Lee, last time out, made the very dumb mistake of just exchanging in the pocket. Who was it? Hyder Emil, I think. And he got caught just throwing hooks like an idiot. And that was never really his style. I do think he's pretty well rounded, definitely the better fight IQ here, but it's tough to say that coming off that last performance. I think he could win this fight at range against Santos. Santos more aggressive and violent, though. For me, this fight very much depends on weigh-ins. If Santos looks locked in, I'm going to pick him. If anything kind of sets me off, though, I could definitely see going to the Lee side. I think especially coming off a loss, he's not going to make the same mistake he did last time of just standing and swinging in the pocket. But at the same time, I mean, Santos definitely dangerous. He's going to look to make this fight a brawl. So if he is locked in, makes weight, gets to the cage, I think he's the side, but that's not a sure thing at all. So another fight I need to spend a little bit more time on, one I could see going either way. But yeah, Santos more likely to find the finish here. I do think Lee could bounce back, though, off a very unintelligent performance against Hyder Emil. I think he could win this fight at range, but it's tough to say that with any sort of confidence. Yeah, relatively low level, very, very competitive fight if it does take place.
Yeah, and I mean that last fight for Lee, getting rushed by Emil early, that's the type of early storm I would expect out of Daniel Santos. I mean, he's a guy that is very reckless. He gets in your face. He looks to you early in round one, engage with his opponents in close Muay Thai range. This fight is at featherweight. The last fight for Santos taking place down at bantamweight, so he's moving up. I think that should at least assist in getting him safely off the scales Friday. However, I think he cedes a lot in regards to his size against an opponent like Young Lee. So again, if Lee's going to fight smart, execute, utilize his good wrestling and grappling in this particular fight, I think that could be one way in order to wear on Santos and ensure he gets into round two and round three, where those strikes aren't going to have as much pop and Santos isn't going to really be as likely to find the finish. Lee's solid wrestling, solid technical striking as well. He has a 6-inch reach advantage against Santos. So if he's able to keep him at the end of his strikes and keep safe distance throughout this fight, I certainly would favor him to get the win. But yeah, again, Santos, bit of a firecracker very early. We could have anything happen in his fights, as you said. Could be a fight that doesn't even materialize come this weekend, but I think if it does, I do like the Lee side. I think he's the more steady fighter. And again, over the course of a full 15 minutes, he would be the side that I would want. I imagine he will be able to execute takedowns at some point. And again, wear on that gas tank from Santos. All right, and now at bantamweight, the opener for this fight card in Canada, Brad Katona, the betting underdog, here plus 130 against Bekzat Almakhan, minus 155, the betting favorite. These odds were even wider earlier in the week. Some action coming in on Brad Katona, somebody traditionally who I've liked to back, but this fight's always just so close. Not the most convincing performances out of Katona. No real power in his shots. He scores good takedowns. He times his entries incredibly well. This opponent, Almakhan, he didn't showcase his skills very much in his fight against Nurmagomedov, but Almakhan is tough. He's gritty. He's fought solid opponents before in UAE Warriors. I could see an issue of cardio being a factor in this fight if Katona is able to just put forth a steady pace, one that Almakhan may not be able to keep and maintain with him. Katona landing 4.84 significant strikes per minute, rather high. At the bantamweight division too, if you're making a tough weight cut to get down to 135 pounds, not many guys could keep that sort of pace with Katona as he's throwing kicks and mixing in takedowns, and that's his best attribute. Katona mixes it up incredibly well. Almakhan may be more looking to execute this fight in the realm that he wants, where Katona won't let that happen, continually changing, going from top position on the mat to letting him stand up and kicking his legs on the feet. Katona is certainly a live underdog in the spot. The look that I may be taking here this weekend, kind of depending on the price. I haven't locked it in yet. I wasn't able to get Katona at plus 150. I'm not sure if I'm going to allow myself to miss the boat here at plus 130 or so. I think he's a live underdog. Curious your thoughts on this matchup too.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. I mean, Katona fights to the level of his opponent, which can be a good thing when he's taking on elite competition, but it's a bad thing when he's not. And Bekzat is a really tough fighter to read because he came into the promotion against one of the best guys in the division, and Umar Nurmagomedov actually dropped him in that first round, but from there he was kind of controlled on the mat for most of that fight. Really wasn't able to do much else. I think if Katona gets his wrestling going here frequently, he's going to be very live as an underdog, but I think on the feed, Bezcat is going to be landing the bigger shots. We didn't really get to see it much against Umar, but he has very powerful kicks, throws high kicks a lot, super aggressive when he is striking. So like I said, Katona needs to get the grappling going early and often, in my opinion. I am on the Bezcat side. I don't know. I have trouble backing Katona just because he is kind of inconsistent. He does keep things close, which would maybe put you on the underdog. But I just think there's a ceiling for Almakhan here. And while he didn't look great against Umar, he did have that moment early. He has looked pretty good regionally. This kid does have a lot of skills. He is the younger fighter. He's quicker, the more powerful striker by a big margin, in my opinion, too. Katona's durable. I do think this is competitive, but yeah, I just think Bekzat has the higher ceiling. I think we could see big improvements from him from the last time out. Now that he is in the UFC, did break that door down. So I don't know. Katona kind of pretty mediocre in my opinion for the most part. I mean, he's good everywhere. Not that he has any singular standout skill though. So I'm on the Almakhan side. I don't love the price though, if I'm being completely honest. I wouldn't fault anyone for taking a shot on the underdog, especially in front of a Canadian crowd.
All right. Well, I hope Canada gets a real good card here this weekend. Enjoyed breaking it down. As always, please check out our full write-up and predictions for these fights on Saturday morning, live on Dine Sports. Nick, thank you as always for joining me, and enjoy UFC 315 here this weekend.
Take care, everyone.